Really dislike Jake Paul. Now, I don't dislike him. I understand him. I want to make something clear. I would still kick the living fuck.
Andrew Tate utterly humiliated Jake Paul on live TV, cementing Jake's reputation for constantly surpassing even the lowest expectations. First, Jake chickened out of Tate's $3 million fight proposal, then dragged Mike Tyson into a staged fight. Knowing Tyson wasn't in his prime, Jake exploited the boxing legend for clout and a paycheck. Now, Jake's latest ploy is provoking Tate into a fight he knows he'll never actually commit to. Why? Because Jake understands he'd lose. He's counting
because he's allowed himself to become the biggest clown on the internet, and now he's famous, right? Because he's an idiot, but he has a bunch of money, so he gets to
on Tate rejecting the offer so he can twist the narrative and paint himself as a fearless warrior. But Andrew Tate didn't take the bait. Instead of declining, he exposed Jake's entire charade on live television, flipping the script. Tate accepted the challenge outright, calling Jake's bluff for the world to see, and Jake's response? Silence. He completely ghosted, retreating into the shadows. Jake's entire strategy hinged on Tate saying no, allowing him to...
You only want to lose to them so you can say, well, I lost to Conor McGregor. Why don't you lose to an old man who's retired? I live in the real f***ing world, Jake. There's a whole bunch of fighters out here who live in the real f***ing world. Men who are dangerous and...
It's been a story of bravery, but Tate outsmarted him, laying bare every inch of Jake's fraudulence. Once again, Jake Paul's attempts at playing the hero have backfired spectacularly, leaving him with nowhere to hide.
but I would whoop his ass. But he wouldn't take a fight against me, because when he loses, I'm not nearly on his level of fame, right? So like, he lost to who? Whereas if he loses to Conor McGregor, it's no big deal. Well, he lost to Conor McGregor, who cares, right? That's what it's about.
Andrew Tate has Jake Paul in full panic mode. Jake never expected Tate to accept his challenge, and now he's cornered with no escape. The so-called fearless Jake Paul is suddenly silent, proving once again he's all talk and no action. Tate didn't just accept the fight, he delivered a reality check so brutal it could have come with a medical disclaimer. He flat-out called Jake's career a joke, accusing him of turning boxing...
I'm not some washed-up UFC fighter. I'm not smaller than him. I would beat the living shit out of him, and if he wants to fight, I'll fight him any day of the week, and I'll fucking wreck him.
Into a TikTok-friendly embarrassment. Hard to argue when Jake's idea of competition includes a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Speaking of Tyson, let's address Jake dragging this legendary heavyweight icon into his circus. Mike Tyson, a revered figure who changed the sport, was reduced to a content gimmick so Jake could play tough. Tate nailed it when he said it wasn't boxing, it was elder abuse. Jake didn't see Tyson as a legend, he saw a shortcut to headlines without taking any real risks. The worst part, Jake actually thought people wouldn't notice. Then there's Jake's laughable fight history, which Tate ripped apart. It's like opening a box of fireworks only to find sparklers. Jake has fought retired MMA fighters who didn't even specialize in striking. Ben Askren, a wrestler with the speed of a snail. Tyron Woodley, a shadow of his former self.
However, I do understand what he's doing. I understand that he is very, very smart, even with his marketing angle. I'm just a YouTuber. You're not just a YouTuber. You're a full-grown man with the best coaches in the world who's dedicated his life to learning how to box for years. You know how to box. You're not a complete amateur. You know how to box very well. 3, 4, 5 years of training combat sports. You can box. The guy's not a jackass.
And Nate Robinson, a basketball player who looked like he'd never thrown a punch in his life. Jake's career is nothing but smoke and mirrors, and Andrew Tate just exposed it for what it truly is, a farce. Jake Paul's career is a highlight reel of low-risk, high-reward stunts, carefully designed to fool casual fans into thinking he's the next big thing. Andrew Tate shredded that illusion like a wet paper towel. Jake, Tate said, if you train half as much as you cherry-pick opponents, maybe you'd actually earn some respect. And then there's the $3 million challenge, a real no-nonsense offer. Winner takes all, no excuses. Tate didn't care about the money. He wanted to expose Jake for who he...
Not just a YouTuber. He is a young man training with Canelo and Ryan Garcia.
When I made the video, I really disliked Jake Paul. Now, I don't dislike him.
Truly is. So, what did Jake do? He ran. Not walked, not jogged. Ran. Jake Paul thrives in controlled environments where everything is choreographed to protect his ego and maintain his narrative. He's the king of playing it safe while pretending he's risking it all. But a fight with Andrew Tate, that's not part of the script. That's a gamble Jake can't afford, because it threatens to dismantle his entire brand. Rejecting Tate's challenge wasn't just a strategic dodge, it was a confession, a confession that all his bravado and trash talk are just that, talk. The self-proclaimed disruptor and game-changer goes radio
$3 million. You put three, I put three. Winner takes all. You know my name, Andrew Tate. I will fight you any day, anytime. Let's fucking go. If I were to fight Jake Paul, I would take it completely seriously like a real fight, and I'd whoop his ass. I'd beat him. Jake. Everyone thinks he's just so
silent when faced with a genuine threat. And let's not forget his loss to Tommy Fury, the beginning of Jake's downfall. Facing Tate would have been the final nail in the coffin, and Jake knew it. But even without stepping into the ring, Andrew Tate delivered a brutal takedown. He publicly dismantled Jake's carefully crafted facade, leaving no doubt that behind the hype, Jake Paul is nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Andrew Tate's verbal takedown of Jake Paul wasn't just a roast. It was full-on humiliation, a masterclass in exposing a fraud. While Jake's TikTok followers and YouTube fans might still buy into his act, the rest of the world now sees through it. Tate reminded everyone what boxing truly represents: respect, skill, and authenticity. Jake Paul, he's just a loudmouth who got lucky gaming the algorithm. Tate's psychological warfare was relentless. He didn't just call Jake a clown, he dismantled his entire persona with surgical precision. Tate accused Jake of being nothing more than a kid playing dress-up in a sport he doesn't respect. And let's be real, Jake's career isn't about boxing, it's about racking up TikTok likes. Tate's savage line, "Jake, your legacy isn't built on fights, it's built on TikTok captions," was so sharp Jake probably needed an ice pack for his ego. This wasn't mere trash talk, it was psychological destruction. Jake's paper-thin self-esteem started cracking in real time. For someone who thrives on projecting larger-than-life confidence, Jake's illusion was shattered by Tate's relentless verbal uppercuts. Social media erupted as Tate exposed Jake's shallow facade, leaving the world to see Jake Paul for what he really is, a manufactured brand with no substance. Social media had a field day, exploding with memes and jokes that hit harder than any punch Jake Paul has ever thrown. Platforms like Twitter and Instagram were flooded with hashtags like Jake Paul exposed and Take TV's shake, as fans gleefully roasted Jake for dodging Tate's $3 million winner-takes-all challenge. The irony? Jake, the self-proclaimed fearless fighter, was running faster than his own hype train. His carefully crafted persona as a fearless disruptor in the boxing world suddenly looked as shaky as one of his cringy post-fight celebrations. This wasn't just another day online. The backlash was brutal. Fans, haters, and everyone in between joined the pile-on. Jake, who reportedly earned over $40 million from his boxing career, found himself in a position no amount of money could fix. Memes labeled him a fraud, a runner, and, let's be honest, just plain scared. Even his most loyal fans began to second-guess their allegiance. Andrew Tate summed it up perfectly when he said, "Jake, even your fans know you cherry-pick fights to protect your brand." The worst part, he's absolutely right. Jake's avoidance of Tate wasn't just a strategic dodge, it was a neon sign flashing fear. Meanwhile, Andrew Tate walked away from the entire mess without breaking a sweat. He didn't need to step into the ring to expose Jake. By simply issuing the challenge and watching Jake squirm, Tate left no doubt about who truly dominates the psychological battlefield. Watching Jake Paul fumble, Andrew Tate cemented his dominance, proving he's the real deal. A fighter who doesn't rely on gimmicks or hand-picked opponents to validate his worth. This wasn't just a win for Tate, it was a masterstroke. He emerged as a beacon of authenticity in a sport increasingly overrun by YouTubers and influencers posing as athletes. For Jake, however,
two brothers, one cage. Jake Logan, you Tristan. Who comes out alive?
You know what? I'm trying so hard to not start internet beefs. I'm really trying not to.
You could say Jake and Logan, man.
Bro,
don't worry about it.
No, I can't lie. Bro, I'm going through life. I'm trying to live peaceful now. I've got Fed agents in my house. Matrix is...
This was a PR catastrophe. His entire brand is built on being fearless and ready to fight anyone. Rejecting Tate's challenge didn't just damage that narrative, it shattered it. This wasn't just about dodging a single fight. It was about what that dodge represented. A fight with Tate wasn't merely risky. It was a direct threat to the carefully crafted illusion Jake has spent years building. Jake's loss to Tommy Fury had already exposed cracks in his armor, but stepping into the ring with Tate could have been the final blow, and Jake knew it. Andrew Tate's mic drop moment was the perfect cherry on top of this roast fest. Jake, you don't need boxing gloves. You need to stay on YouTube where losing isn't as painful. Brutal, accurate, and so cutting it could have doubled as a knife. Jake Paul's rejection of Tate's challenge wasn't just about avoiding a fight, it was an unspoken confession. Deep down, Jake knows he's out of his league. Tate didn't need to prove anything. His legacy is already solid, but Jake, he needed this fight to keep the illusion alive. And now that illusion is shattered. The fallout from this debacle is something Jake might never recover from. His road to redemption isn't just uphill, it's practically vertical. It's no longer enough for him to hype his next fight. Now Jake has to convince a skeptical audience that he's more than a YouTuber with boxing gloves. And let's be real, that's a tall order when even his die-hard fans are questioning his credibility.